Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Gabriel Carrera Show. I appreciate you guys sharing and the love and the support we got from the first podcast. I'm glad that you guys got some value there, and my plan is to continue to give more value to you guys. So here on the second podcast, my guest, Elgin, he's actually a neighbor of mine here in the city of Landers, and after 20 years, he ended up building a second home here, and he shares with us the hurdles he faced with permitting, ordering materials, and how the change in interest rates affected his exit strategy on this property. So if you're interested in learning about and hearing someone's story on how they pretty much did most of the build by themselves and the hurdles they face with that, stay tuned. I hope you guys get some value, and I'll see you guys on the inside. Peace. Today we've got our second guest on the podcast, someone I'm excited to interview. Elgin, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Gabriel.
So, we're neighbors.
Yeah, we are neighbors.
When I first got this property across the street, there was nothing here. Thank you for always, every time I come around, you're always welcoming me and showing me what the progress has been like. It's been super inspiring and pretty much 90% there already?
I'm going to say 90.
There we go.
Pretty close. Yep. And
yeah.
I appreciate that, but yeah, you make it easy.
You've met my parents. You've met, my.
They're as nice as you are.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you. But let's take it back from the start here, Elgin. So, can you tell us a little bit, about where you grew up and what it was like?
Sure. I grew up in a small town in eastern Washington, which called Benton City. I was raised with 4 brothers and a sister.
Okay.
And I remember one of my first jobs was help my mom on a paper route, a Sunday morning paper route, where she'd get up at midnight or whatever it was and deliver papers. And so that kind of gave me the ethic of, getting up and going to work and experience that. And that's probably when I was 12 or 13. And that was more just, so she could have somebody go with her and whatnot. But and then my dad, he worked out in the Hanford area, or just off of it, as a software computer programmer, one of the, back when it was kind of new.
Okay. Did you finish high school and go to college or? I
didn't go to college.
No.
And I went right up to the senior year in high school, and then decided, I had met some friends from Tri-Cities who were all coming to California. And I was 18, just turned 19 at the time. And I thought, well, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And so next thing I know, I'm heading off to California.
Nice. So you did finish senior year, or you decided to drop out and senior year?
Yeah, and I finished about halfway through. And then I think a lot of it is just my hard-headed mentality of well, you'll never be anything without this diploma. And I always thought, well, that's just a paper. It's not important. I've learned it. So it was kind of silly, but.
Hey, I believe the same thing. I dropped out of college and, people would always tell me the same thing, oh, you're not going to do anything, if you don't have that degree, and you hear that over and over again. But sometimes those decisions in life can really inspire you and motivate you to actually work harder or learn more, right?
I agree with that. Yeah.
So when you dropped out, what did you decide to pursue then? Were you already getting into the construction side of things or not?
No, not too much then. I think at that time I was working at it was a slaughter plant for cows.
Well, how long were you doing that for?
I don't remember. I think maybe 6 months.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then met these friends from the Tri-Cities. They were all going to California, and I thought, well, that sounds good to me. They actually ended up in the Bay Area, San Jose.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and joined. They were older, so they were on the Carpenters Union already. So as soon as we got down to San Jose, I joined the Carpenters Union.
Working there, what did you learn? How was that like?
Well, it got into the structural concrete side of it, and my first job was the San Jose Convention Center, and so that was pretty neat because it was all kind of new. Wow. Yeah.
So you were getting your hands dirty there. I'm sure you learned a lot there, right?
Yeah, and then I moved to Central Valley with the company where they're building prisons. A lot of people don't realize California's got prisons throughout. So I spent years in that. I ended up where being pretty young as a foreman for, I think I was 24. I just turned out recently as a journeyman carpenter, and ended up running, it was a precast crew, so it was a 250-ton crane that would set the concrete wall panels. You'd go through and you'd set your wall panels and your chase panels, then you'd set a concrete deck, and then you'd set the next ones. And so I thought it was a real accomplishment at that time because they're very large, one of the largest construction company in the world. A lot of things I haven't thought about in a long time.
Yeah. I think all that's super important because I feel like, all these many accomplishments that we have can really, really shape our decision making in the future, and maybe, made you even convinced to do a project like this,
Yeah.
So after working in that construction company for a while, what was next?
I think went back and forth between California and Washington probably, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times throughout the years.
Just doing construction things.
Yeah. I think there's not enough tradespeople right now, and I think that is directly from like 04, 05, 06. You're nothing without a college education. They started teaching these kids and these people. Yet, construction is an unskilled trade, which is a big lie, obviously. But
yeah,
fast forward till a year and a half ago when I'm trying to get an architect to start this building, I'm thinking, well, everybody I knew was going to college. But the point is that I figured there'd be all kinds of architects. I couldn't beg an architect. You could not get, if they answered their phone at all, because during the pandemic, you couldn't walk in.
Yeah.
In 03, when I built a house, I walked in.
So 03, you built your first house.
Mm-hmm.
Where was that at?
That was in, I call it the Monterey Business Center in Yucca Valley. It's just up on the other side of the business center there.
I have to stop by that. So that was the first.
Yeah, that's when I first learned that just because you're a commercial carpenter doesn't mean you know how to build a house. And so there was a big learning curve. Yeah.
What were one of the biggest learning lessons through that process?
I think a lot of it is what I learned again on this one is the just having to have all the paperwork, the permits, the lead time, getting the stuff you need, and just overall, it's different. Whereas in commercial, there's seems to be tons of money, that you can get the best equipment and the best of everything and pay people a ton of money to come and help you. But whereas in residential, you're trying to do your own, those things are a lot harder to come by.
Yeah. So that first one, how did you decide to start that project on that?
It was a couple of brothers that I went to church with. They'd come up with that. That was during the boom, and that's when, like I said, I went in, I got that set of plans, a buildable set of plans. I think I walked into his office, and an hour later I came out, submitted it, and it went through.
Wow.
Whereas you fast forward 20 years, you can't get an architect, can't get plans. It's like we've went backwards in a lot of ways. But so a couple of brothers, they had a pest control business, and they thought, hey, we'd like to get in on, that housing boom at that time.
Yeah.
I said, all right, let's do it. And it was.
So hold on. You had never built a house before.
No.
And they just tell you, hey, I want you to build a house.
Well, they knew I'd had the construction background, and I thought I knew more than I did at that time.
Okay, but what gave you that confidence? Just the fact that you've already had learned so much new things, and you're like, hey, whatever I encounter, I'll figure it out on the way.
Yeah, that same kind of hard-headed that's got me through life. Yeah.
Hey, man, sometimes people think hard-headed is a bad thing, but hey, it's the thing that actually helped you push forward and have that confidence. And, I've heard a lot of, famous quotes. You see them on Instagram and Facebook all the time, of like inspirational quotes and stuff like that. I think Richard Branson said one time, like, hey, if somebody offers you something, a position that can be lucrative, have huge potential, just say yes and figure it out later,
I like it.
Yeah, I like that too. You had that persistence. You had that drive. What allowed you to have that? Was it just a confidence in what you had already done before? You think that just stacked up over time?
I think so.
Yeah.
I really do. It's, sometimes just I've gotten so many jobs through the years of not really knowing exactly what to trade that well. But if you kind of sell yourself that you do, then you get down there and you work harder than anybody else, or you work really hard. Typically, you'll always keep the job just because of, and that's why I've learned, I was able to learn the different trades was just by willing to take it and maybe try to work harder than everybody else to make up for what I didn't know. The respect I have for home builders who make it look easy.
Yeah.
And that kind of gives you the false impression that it might be easier than it is, but it's just because they're so good at what they do. And,
Yeah.
you know, and also what I've tried to keep in mind is that when you build one in 20 years and you largely take it on by yourself, you're not going to be able to do what a contractor has been doing at 20, 30, 40 years, you know, and has their
Consistently.
subcontractors.
What brought you here to Landers?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, you know what? I first came to Yucca Valley in 97. We were living in Western Washington.
Okay.
And my wife, she wasn't feeling it there, wasn't where, so her sister who lived in Yucca Valley said, come on down here, Elgin will love it. And I thought, I'd never heard of it, but I thought, well, okay. And when I first looked at the weather map, I'd seen Palm Springs and it was like 110. I thought, oh man, you know, I don't know. But anyway, long story short, she came down and then I finished up the job where I was at and came on down and I loved it. And that was, it was a while, so it was a while after the big earthquake, so like 5 years, but still, you'd hear stories of everybody who's been through it. And
what were people saying? What are some of these Landers earthquake stories?
I thought that it was the end of the world.
Really?
Yeah, it really shook. It was big. Everybody had a story, but on top of that, a lot of people had moved.
Yeah.
They just got out. And so it was,
They were just scared this
terrified.
whole thing was going to open up or what?
I guess so.
Wow.
And so when I got here, I loved it. And, you know, first night I went out and it was just the sound of nothing.
Yeah.
You know, just nothing. And thought, wow, pretty incredible. So a lot of it was the cheap cost, but also the smaller town.
So the wife's family brought you down here and you just kind of started doing projects. So actually, let's go back to that house. How long did that property take you to get from the plans to all the way up, that first one?
You know what?
Yeah,
and I thought that was a long time, but that was 8 months at a time.
8 months.
Yeah.
Okay. So how long did it take you to get the plans approved?
You know, that's been a long time ago, but it was time consuming, but
Not as time consuming.
maybe, no. No, we went backward in so many ways, just not even funny, because probably about a month, maybe a little more, and I thought that was compared to the 7 months it took me this time.
Yeah. That's huge now.
Huge.
So it took you a month back then and then another like 7 months to build it all pretty much yourself. So you would,
Remember right?
would you be doing most of the stuff yourself or would you get in some subcontractors or how was that like?
A little bit of subcontract both, but also back then I had a lot more associated with people who could help me, other carpenters, and it wasn't as, there was a lot more labor available, so I had a lot more help on that one, you know, type of carpenter friends, and I'd sub out stuff like plaster, electrical, whatnot. I think I did the concrete, the framing, roofing, structural type of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty well, yeah. And it was a long time, you know, because back then that was a boom and people were building them in 4 months.
But hey, I'm sure you learned a lot in that process. So once you got done with that, what was your perspective on building new homes or the new stuff you learned?
At that point, it was pretty tough. And so, and I didn't build again now it was nearly 20 years. So it was good, but it was pretty tough.
What was one of the biggest hurdles you dealt with there?
I was actually a single dad at that time with 3 sons, and they remind me that they spent a lot of time at home alone.
Damn.
You know, my youngest son thinks he was probably pretty well picked on because I wasn't there a lot, but
But you were just out there just busy working the whole time.
Yeah, when I look back, you don't really, when you're in it, I don't think you see it as much, but I do now.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is just, I realized then, what I realized again is building a house is a lot of work. It really is. You gotta have a lot of abilities, a lot of willing to stay with it. Like I said, the guys who've been doing it for 50 years, they make it look easy, but it's not. It's a challenge.
So what got you inspired to build something now?
Well, you know what? Actually, it was, I think more the opportunity. You know, as I kind of got out of the commercial trade, I made less money. There's more freedom, but so, you know, I would say I was struggling. And my brother and sister-in-law, they said, hey, we got an opportunity for you. We're gonna want to finance you to build a house. And the plan was so I build it, sweat equity, keep the cost down, then obtain a mortgage. But as is now, it's probably, it's cost so much more than what I expected. As I was showing you the lumber charts, from the time I'd gotten the money to when I purchased my lumber, there was a 300% increase in price. So long story short, the amount of time, the amount of money, by the time I'm done, it's probably going to be more than I'll be able to afford a mortgage for.
Yeah. So how much have materials gone up? Lumber, you said went up 300%. Mm-hmm. What other material costs were like unexpected or?
Pretty much across the board. But but also at the same time, being out here, gas was a big one.
Yeah.
The permit process is 7 months, essentially it took. From the time I wasn't able to get an architect, spent a month and a half, finally got a designer who would be willing to take it. So he added on the garage to an existing plan, so another month and a half. So I'm about 3 months just about into it. And then so now I've got the plan ready to submit.
Yeah.
And so that's, by the time I finally got the permit on April 20th, if I had not had $20,000 and some months into it, I would have just said, no, I just can't. It's because the people in the county are very good people. They're very helpful, they're kind. But the state and the county's regulation that they're forced to follow is so burdensome and time consuming, and some of it they just don't take into account. You may be the owner builder, you may own the property, but the county and the state will tell you if you can build, what you can build, when you can build, how you can build.
Yeah.
And so that was with my my free spirit. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I own the property, I pay the taxes, but they'll tell me. But anyway, long story short, so that much time to get the permit, but then I waited to order the doors and windows because you don't know up until you get the permit. At any time it could fall apart for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And so I waited, and it was going to be a month and a half, and I thought, oh, well, that's great. I better get going. I better hurry and get the slab in, foundation, get framed. But come to find out, so when I called after that month and a half to find out, that was a computer-generated estimate on a software that was before the pandemic. So anyway, yeah. So they said, oh, it's going to be another 3.5 months.
Wow.
The day I called to ask when the delivery was, they added 3.5 months.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That's ridiculous.
I thought, how can you do that?
Yeah.
And so the time, and but then also, once I got the foundation formed up with the history in concrete, typically you would call for your order your concrete a day, maybe 2 days, maybe you'd have to wait till the next week if they're real busy. Because I knew a concrete guy, 5 weeks. It would have been, for me, it would have been 8 weeks.
Wow.
With that already formed up, rebar in, so your project just stops. But what I did was I set up a panel yard and just started fabbing all the panels, wall panels. And that's at that time I could have hired a contractor to frame it, but if your windows and doors take 5 months, there's really not much sense. So
you were doing the framing outside yourself?
Mm-hmm.
With wow.
Yeah,
so you're making the panels before you even had the concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Had to, because they told me 5 weeks.
Yeah.
I thought, 5 weeks, what happened? That's part of with the plan. Everything's went backwards.
Yeah.
It's just, they've made it much more complicated. You would think a history of building houses in this country for hundreds of years, but something broke. A lot of it, the pandemic, they said, but
do you think that
trade war with China?
Get these windows from China and stuff, or no?
No, they actually come right down there from, I think, Glendale or something.
Glendale.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I even called straight to the factory when they added 3.5 months. I thought, this can't be right.
Yeah.
And
that's a long time.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. When you were thinking, and well, that was from on top of from the time I thought I was going to have them.
Yeah.
And one of the inspectors that came out here, he had actually was a salesman for these. And I go, yeah, it took a long time. It took 5, and he said weeks. And I said, no, months. And he thought 5 weeks was a long time.
Wow.
So that puts in perspective of what, So when I originally got the money, the lumber was down around $400 a board foot. When I purchased this, $1,700 a board foot.
Yeah.
But not only that, then you got to add on all of the time delays for materials.
Yeah.
And then when all that's happened, the Fed thinks it's a good idea to raise interest rates 6 times in 1 year.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, during the first part of the pandemic, these houses were selling in a week for a lot of money.
How much were they selling for?
Well, the one in Joshua Tree on Saddleback sold for $1,050,000 in a week.
Yeah.
$100,000 above what they were asking.
Yeah.
In a week.
Yeah.
Okay. But now what happened?
Same square footage, right?
Same square footage.
Yeah.
Just had the carport, but really super nice. High end at every level.
Yeah.
Just a really long time builder, beautiful house.
Yeah.
And but the point is that everything started elevating to that. Your materials, your labor costs, everything's inflating, and then the Fed does that. So as everything's coming like this, and the houses prices are going like this, it's a stressful.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a great opportunity. Don't get me wrong. Ultimately, I think I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see when
you'll see when that check hits.
Exactly
So in regards to this property here, did you find this property? How'd you find the lot?
Actually, I've had this for about 3 years. It was through a super great deal.
And you can too. Now, if you're looking to build the home of your dreams, send me a DM here at Gabriel Carrera _ where I would be happy to help you find the right parcel that you can build a nice modern desert oasis. See you guys on the inside. Peace.
It was 18.5.
18.5 with the water meter.
Yeah.
2.2 acres.
2.3, yep.
2.3 acres. Wow.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Really good price.
Yeah, it was. A lot of people, they associate landers with, well, it has been really cheap, and it has been where people would escape when they can't afford anywhere else. But I was able to look back to that and always believe, because the amount of water, the power here, the privacy. I mean, at night, there's no light pollution.
Yeah.
There's no noise pollution. There's no air pollution. It's just, you're a little ways out of town.
Flying here.
Oh, yeah. In the base every once in a while, we'll let off some big bombs.
Yeah, you felt them here.
Oh, yeah. But besides that, I've loved landers. I always believed that it would take off. Just for the main reason is the water and the power and availability. Because, them places are getting far and fewer in between. Originally, though, when my brother and sister-in-law were financing me, he bought a lot in Yucca Valley.
Oh, okay.
And
is it in a more residential area?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Half acre, really.
What street?
Beautiful lot. It's on Warren Way, on the high side of Warren Way. So it's right on the bottom of Western Hills.
Gotcha.
And,
Western Hills Estate. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's a good area.
It's nice. But here's the thing: it ended up on a specialized earthquake fault line, which the realtor is by law has to
disclose that.
Right, but he did, but in writing in the stacks that I should have seen. So it's on me.
Wow.
But anyway, he didn't verbally disclose it. But come to find out, it seemed to be a big deal, and nobody would tell me, which I found out months later. It's called the Alquist-Piolo, something like that, earthquake fault. It's a statewide thing, so people won't build right over, but it does not apply to single-family homes. So I would have had no problem. But anyway, long story short, pandemic, you couldn't get into the shitty offices.
Did you just sell it?
And no, it's still sitting there. We put a brand new water meter in, and in town, that's way better. That was $6,500. And now, though, since they changed the Joshua trees from 10 feet to 40 feet, it's essentially worth nothing right at this point, which I think is a crime in itself, that people can just take your investment. They raised the tax price up to the higher price we paid immediately. Yeah. But it's worth nothing. You can do nothing with it.
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, I personally think 10 feet is enough.
It is. I know it is.
Yeah, I love when nature and josh trees are incorporated to a structure where have a beautiful view here, and we can have a josh tree right there, and
Absolutely.
But yeah, it sucks how all these regulations are kind of changing, and I understand they want to protect the beautiful trees and everything like that. And that's what kind of brings a lot of us out here, just taking the pictures of the trees and being in touch with nature, but at the same time, and it sucks for a lot of people who've actually put their hard-earned money into, potentially developing something and then realizing, oh man, I can't do anything.
Well, and that's what you say about that is because they take the people like me and like you who would respect the trees, and 10 foot is respect and is good, but they make it unreasonable. And I've been told by people in the proper positions, hey, if we would have busted this wide loose, it would look like the Wild West. Everybody would be building everywhere like crazy.
Yeah.
And so they kind of used it as a way to suppress the building.
Yeah.
Which I got mixed feelings for. I'm more about like, well, be open and honest about it. Say we can't just build everywhere. Don't just hide behind a tree and act like people who want to destroy the desert when, just like you said, you can be in harmony. 10 feet, if you look at the roots, that's fine.
Exactly.
You see the older places with Joshua trees right up on them. The worst thing you do to them is tear them down. They want you to remove them or move them or do something or anyway, that my brother paid that money for the lot, now pays the taxes. We paid that, and that they can just, just with a swap in the hand, make it worth nothing.
Yeah.
It's that part's really been frustrating. But anyway, that's how we ended up here, is because I was thinking nobody could tell me that earthquake fault zone doesn't apply to single family homes.
Wow. Yeah, that's super interesting. I'm actually curious on that because I had no idea. I actually just bought a lot and I was actually flipping it to another investor who actually wanted to develop a single family home here in Landridge as well. And then I was selling it to him, and then he says, hey, I talked to my architect. I think there's a fault line here. And I bought it directly from the seller, so there was no realtor paperwork or anything. It was just, hey, like, there's our contract, this is what we're going to do. And that was it, it was my fault for now I know, obviously, for everybody out there who's looking at, buying a potential deal out here, look for the NHD report that has the fault lines, that has the flood zones. All that stuff is super important to know, what it's going to be. But yeah, I have this property, and what my buddy told me, he was buying this lot off me. He was like, hey, let's pay for a geotech report. So we spent like $5,000 spending on this geotech report on this property. And turns out that the geotech report, they pretty much dug a hole. And I'm thinking, cool, they're going to tell me what we can build or we can't build, or they're going to tell me something, right? And then they pretty much say, yeah, well, you're going to have to pay like $100,000 for another report. And I'm like, yo, we're not going to pay $100,000 for another report.
The thing is, well, because actually the local authority can make you go above normal rules for build
or something, yeah.
Because it's on there, but as far as the state's concerned, there are no.
Wow.
You can't. I know, and the thing is I spent so much time going to the city and just getting no help till I finally put in Alquist Priolio exemptions. Boom, came right up. Single family homes. I thought, no way.
Wow.
So there is no exemption on them. And the thing is, what kind of got me is, okay, it's on the bottom of Western Hills, but earthquakes, they go out, right?
Yeah.
And so that's sitting on that whole hill with slide factors and massive rocks, but those are not considered a danger zone from the earthquake.
Yeah.
But the one, because it's close to that. But the thing is, that neighborhood has houses all through it. And I wouldn't even think a thing about building on it. I would build on it in a second. But but you're right, that 100,000, that's scary, that they can add because that's part of that.
It's for like a special report. I'm like, yo, like we already spent $5,000 on the special report,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those mistakes, those mistakes we learn from.
Right, right. And so, you're right, that just really read everything in that, a realtor. I was pretty offended for a while because I thought he should have told me. He knew, I could tell. I think back to the time when he knew.
Yeah.
He told me it was in a fire zone. He could have said it was an earthquake, but he knows I probably would have
backed out or something.
Yeah.
It's 2 lots away from, our buddy, our other neighbor here, Derek's over there in Ripon.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's 2 lots away from there, so it's a good area. Mm-hmm. But just that one property, maybe one on top is on it as well. Maybe the one on bottom, but nothing else.
Yeah, it's only I think it's like a quarter-mile wide or something. They go,
It's so dumb, but I mean, it is what it is, and it's crazy. There's people building like 3 lots north of there, and like they're totally fine, you know, but it's just like, I don't know.
And that's the other part, that because all them houses that are through there, I mean, it's like one of the only empty lots, half-acre lots all through there.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, a couple of sweet older ladies that live right next door. They're not worried about it. They're not afraid of it. But so it was a big deal. But something I was thinking about that would really help somebody who may be an owner builder or is, it wasn't until 3/4 of the way through my county process, which was tough, not as bad as the city. City's hard to deal with, but I found out later they're trying to discourage. They don't want people building. That's just the truth.
Yeah.
And, but anyway, it's finally a gal, and you go in Wednesday and you can go and talk to them in the county. She gave me this roadmap printout, exactly what I needed. If I would have had that from in the city or even the beginning of the county. So once you begin, go to the county and have them print out exactly the steps, what you need that are absolutely required, you have to have. And then if you're out here in the county, get a perk test first, right away. Because I did the perk test very first thing in the process and still ended up waiting a month after the end of it.
Wow.
After from 6 months into the 7th month, still waiting for it to get out of it. Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So how much was the plans and stuff?
Yeah, the plans, I think I paid for my blueprint and for him to submit was $7,000, and then the perk test was $3,500. So around $10,000 to get your plans, but that's without, in the county, you don't have to do a grading plan if you're cut and fills under 100 feet of, you know, cut and fill, either one.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have to have a grading plan, it had already just been surveyed, so I didn't have to have the survey. So basically with the blueprints and the perk, I think he started submitting at that time, started the process, so around 10,000.
Around
11,000, yeah.
Wow.
And with the perk test, get somebody from San Bernardino County. I went with somebody from the Irvine, which is Orange County, and they weren't familiar with some of the things in that, so that added another month onto it, yeah. Which is, you know, it's silly stuff like historic water table and the nearest well. The county knows that, but they just wanted him to have to put it in there, so they had to go back and add it a whole another month. After you sit for 6 months looking at the property, waiting, had the money, have the plan, but you can't touch it.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it's tough.
Took a long time.
Yeah, like I said, I would have got out if I didn't have so much time. But it's just, like I say, it seems like so much that we progress in society. House building is just like, I don't know, just went backwards in a lot.
It's crazy because California talks a lot about, oh, we need more housing, we need more housing, we need more housing, but they're still very, you know, the regulation, I feel, in specific some certain counties are just very, you know, slow and antique and don't want to, you know.
Exactly right.
And then, so you got your plans approved April 20th, 2022. And, you know, you're finishing up this property right now. So it's been a while you've been building this. What's been one of the biggest delays you've had?
The main thing was, like, okay, so the windows, there wasn't really, if, you know, you got another 3.5 months, so a total of 5 months, it doesn't do much good to, you know, have it all framed and sitting there. Yeah. It wouldn't hurt, but it doesn't, you can't gain anything. You can't go past that because you don't have doors and windows. And so literally, I framed it all by myself, 100%.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's a lot right there. Yeah. What made you decide to do it all yourself?
You know, I think a lot of it was, originally I was going to get some help, but number one is there's just not tradespeople out there. There's really no help to get. And I mean, I didn't really believe it when I heard the news at first, but there's number one. Number two, when you do get somebody, the cost is going to be
significant.
Yeah. So and then three, you know, high work, wind, whatnot, somebody got hurt, and then you hope. So it's kind of a combination of the three, and I've always just kind of like, you know, pushing through myself when I can. And, but that's added, like I say, I'd estimated to be done in 8 months, and I'm already at 11, not done. So, and, you know, over 100,000 more than what I estimated. So yeah, it's been a tough
pretty
struggle.
Penny.
Yeah. But probably the stupidest thing I did was hanging the drywall myself and insulating. And
that's a lot.
Yeah,
man.
It was. but I wouldn't do it again.
No.
Them are the things I learned. Well, I take that back. I mean, if I just had infinite amount of money and time where I'd love it. I'd just do it all myself. But
yeah. Do you feel like looking back on the whole project and the timeline, if you were to do it again, would you get more people to help you out?
Yeah. It's just what I think doing it by yourself, you can't overlap. Whereas when, say, you can have a guy putting in doors and closets and the plumber doing the same thing, the electrician, well, I subbed out electrical, but say there's 3 different things you could have happening at the same time. When you're doing it yourself, you can't overlap them and do them at the same time. It's one step at a time. So it's added
a lot
of time.
So this property, you're going to be selling it soon. So check it out on the market. It's going to be here soon.
Yep.
Would you consider doing another project like this again? Actually, before you answer that, let's talk about the market. So how has this market shifted? This market, the interest rates, man. They took a huge impact here, right?
Yeah. Since I've had a lot of time to think about that, I've thought about the history of California in itself, how the boom and bust cycle, starting with the gold rush. There's people who live, their families are millionaires to this day in San Francisco, and the richest pair from the gold they got. There's others who are busted and got nothing. There's others who died. So the .com, I've realized a boom and bust. And so I'm on the end of the high materials, high labor, and now the Fed. How can you go years and years at 0% interest and then raise it 6 times in a year? I mean, I just, you want to have confidence in a partner when you put this much work and money into it. It's like, do you guys really know what you're doing? I mean, you just leave it at 0, then just crazily. But anyway, so with it coming down and having so many hundreds of thousands of dollars, months and months of labor, and now the market that somebody who could afford it a year ago can't now, just because their mortgage is that much more. So the variables, and that's why I think I would push harder for the time. And I think I'm doing another one. I'm thinking about the small houses are pretty popular now. Something that I took the plan I could get. I knew it would be kind of biting off a lot for one person, but it's still taking far more longer than I thought. But I think I would like to do it again.
It's probably something smaller, and then subbing it out more.
Yeah, I wouldn't have to as much if I go real small, like say some of these ones that are 500-600 square feet with a carport, because adding the garage, it's a nice big garage, but that was a lot of extra work, and which may not pay off in an Airbnb world. It wouldn't, because they're not too interested in that. But my brother, being from Washington, and they up there, they just don't build without garages. So I said, no, put one on there. Okay, well that's and I understand, but I also wanted to maybe, instead of if it's not Airbnb, that somebody could have a nice home and enjoy this,
Yeah.
But originally, the original plan was for me to have my own home, sweat equity. But like I say, it's everything inflated just exceedingly fast. And the remote work that brought so many people out is kind of, is slowing down. People are going back to the office. So they don't have quite the opportunity, because I did take and I wired this for every future option you could have, as far as audio, visual, security. Yeah,
it's got some Bluetooth speakers up here on the top, some nice, fixtures here, that nice lamp here, and then we've got obviously the views, big open windows.
Yeah, the views are really what's gonna, like in the summer months, right through there, you just the most gorgeous sunsets you could ever imagine.
Yeah,
absolutely. And then the warm summer nights when you can stay out till 10, 11 at night with it 70 degrees and beautiful.
Yeah, this is really, really nice. Yeah, well, Elgin, thank you for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to let the audience know before we get close to wrapping this up? Any final lessons?
I guess maybe just that if you're going to jump into it, just expect it's going to be tough. And, willing to see it through. If it's something you want to do, it's going to be. That's why, like you said, there's not that many houses. Is because besides it being hard in itself, the state, I believe, makes it hard. But that's about it. And then I want to thank you for the opportunity. It's been a long time since somebody's been that interested, maybe ever, to hear what I have to say. So nice opportunity.
Of course.
I appreciate you when you stop by, and
I'm grateful to be your neighbor and consider you a friend. So hopefully we can see what possibilities or what opportunities come up from this. Maybe collaborate on some things in the future. And before we just wrap this up, what's your 5-year or 10-year goal?
Good question. Yeah, I'd like to keep going, keep building. Like I say, this one has been humbling from the time and cost. Opportunity to work with people who maybe had the strength of getting the permits ready, getting everything ordered ahead of time, having material on the site, and then I could would I be interested in getting some journeyman level people, good craftsmen, builders who could come in, and so that would cut down the time. You could get a good quality project, but also the stuff that I could really let go, like the permitting, like the ordering and the paperwork and stuff. If there was that type of fit, that'd be really nice. Would I like to keep doing my own thing, maybe smaller homes, buying property, the freedom, the ability to do it has been awesome. I mean, my brother and sister, I can't say enough. They put trust in me that nobody has, and gave me this opportunity. And so I think, so I would like to keep going, if this can sell and I get a fair price and I have some of my own capital to put into it, I feel a little more confident and, doling it out. And I guess the answer to that, I would like to. I'd like to just keep on building this. If I could do this, it'd be great. There is a huge amount of time from your investment to your return. I'd like to cut that way down.
But with that being said, Elgin, again, thank you. Where can people find you?
I think it would just be by phone.
By phone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Should I give out my number?
Yeah, for sure. Let people know.
Area code 442-269-1526. And the smarter move was, again, more hands-on building, more letting the people who know tech, know the permits, know the ordering, know the system, do that, and then maybe I could focus more on what my experience is. Because if you take on a housing project, it's pretty endless.
Well, thanks again, Elgin. Appreciate you, and you killed it. So, man, even the people love it. You can hear that there. Thank you, bro.
Hey, thank you.